Sashwin? Okay, thank you. Hare
Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupadada Mayam Dadanti Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Yutabadakamalam Gurun Vaishnavam Shya Shri Rupa Sahaja Sahagana Yadevam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Sapta Kanjana Gaurangi
Vaneshwari Sute Devi Hari Chakapatarubyashcha Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha Patitanam Pavani
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Yadvaita Gadadhar Adi Bhuvna Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna Hare
Krishna
Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Shashwin, for the wonderful Mangalacharan. We are in Eldoret experiencing fluctuation in electricity. So, Prabhuji, please forgive us. We are reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 1. We are on chapter 6, which is the conversation between Narada and Vyasadeva. Prabhuji, today we are on text 35.
Thank you, Madam.
Prabhuji, I'll hand over to you.
Narayan namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiriyeta nashtaprayeshu abhatreshu nityam bhagavata seveya bhagavate tam shloki bhakti bhavtina ashtaki Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from first canto, chapter 6, verse number 35. Yam adibir yoga pathai kama loba hato muhu mukunda sevaya yadvat tathatma dha na shamyati. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. It is true that by practicing restraint of the senses, by the yoga system, one can get relief from the disturbances of desire and lust. But this is not sufficient to give satisfaction to the soul, for this satisfaction is derived from devotional service to the personality of Godhead. Purport. Yoga aims at controlling the senses. By practice of the mystic process of bodily exercise, in sitting, thinking, feeling, willing, concentrating, meditating, and at last being merged into transcendence, one can control the senses. The senses are considered like venomous serpents, and the yoga system is just to control them. On the other hand, Narad Muni recommends another system, another method for controlling the senses in the transcendental loving service of Mukunda, the personality of Godhead. By his experience, he says that devotional service to the Lord is more effective and practical than the system artificially controlling the senses. In service of the Lord Mukunda, the senses are transcendently engaged. Thus, there is no chance of being engaged in sense satisfaction. The senses want some engagement. To check them artificially is no check at all, because as soon as there is some opportunity for enjoyment, the serpent-like senses will certainly take advantage of it. There are many such instances in history, just like Vishwamutra's falling a victim to the beauty of Menaka. But Thakur Haridas was allured at midnight by the well-dressed Maya, and still she could not induce that great devotee into her trap. The whole idea is that without devotional service of the Lord, neither the yoga system nor dry philosophical speculation can ever become successful. Pure devotional service of the Lord without being tinged with fruity work, mystic yoga, or speculative philosophy is the foremost procedure to attain self-realization. Such pure devotional service is transcendental in nature, and the systems of yoga and jnana are subordinate to such a process. When the transcendental devotional service is mixed with a subordinate process, it is no longer transcendental, but it is called mixed devotional service. Srila Vyasdev, the author of Srimad Bhagavatam, will gradually develop all these different systems of transcendental realization in the text. Hare Krishna. So it's a beautiful verse. It's more or less very heavy verse, because this verse is able to give us the supremacy of devotional service, which Prabhupada calls it in English, loving devotional service to Krishna or Krishna consciousness. I read the translation again. It is true that by practice of restraint of the senses by the yoga system, one can get relief for the disturbances of desire and lust. But this is not sufficient to give satisfaction to the soul, for this satisfaction is derived from devotional service to the personality of Godhead. Now, here, Sri Prabhupada explains in the purport. We'll go through some points in the purport. Sri Prabhupada says, what is yoga? Many people do not know what is yoga. These days, just yesterday in the morning, in Nairobi, we had Rath Yatra recently, and the regional police officer, he has become a very good friend of mine. So he called me in the morning and said, do you teach yoga? I said, no, we don't teach yoga. Of course, I could not explain so many things because it's not on that level to understand real yoga. Real yoga means to restrain or control your senses. The Prabhupada says, yoga means indriya sayama, to control all our senses, including the mind. That is called yoga. And furthermore, after controlling the senses and mind connected to the lotus feet of Krishna, that is real yoga. So-called yoga these days is not actually yoga, it's more or less to keep you healthy or bodily exercises. Now this process here, Srila Prabhupada says, the mystic process of bodily exercises, like sitting, thinking, feeling, willing, concentrating, meditating, and at last being merged into transcendence, one can control the senses. Yes, these are some of the methods. And many people will try different things. For example, sitting is called asana, and thinking is called soch. Thinking, feeling, willing are three departments of the mind. Concentrating means samadhi, or trying to focus, or focused already. meditating means meditating at one point, and that is Krishna. And at last being merged into transcendence. Then one can control the senses, which is step by step. Now you'll find that always our senses are not pure. Our senses are always impure. One of the faults of our conditioned soul is that our senses are impure. And if we can, the senses are compared to be poisonous snakes or serpents. Now you'll find that the snakes by nature are poisonous and they like to bite everyone to remove that poison. But if the fangs are removed from the snake, then those snakes become powerless. So in the same way, by practicing bhakti yoga, our senses, the poison is removed. Every day by practicing bhakti yoga in the 9 processes, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Samaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Vandanam, Atma Nivedanam. These are the 9 processes of devotional services. And as we practice devotional services gradually, the mind becomes, the senses become pure. And once the senses are pure, then the mind becomes stable. You'll find that many devotees after many, many years says, oh, I have a lot of problem with the mind. Well, before controlling the mind, have you engaged your senses in the service of Krishna? If not, that problem will continue. But once you engage your senses in the service of Krishna, then automatically the mind will settle. It will calm down. It will become tranquil. So this is the way Bhakti Yoga is very, very scientific. That's why this particular verse, Narada Muni is telling Vyasdev that by yoga you can still not get complete relief from desire or lust. You may do it for some extent, but not otherwise. Now, if you go to Bhagavad Gita also, Srimad Bhagavatam, we already done this verse earlier. A beautiful verse, Krishna speaking about when glorifying the process of hearing. We find that these verses are quoted. I think we read them also last time, where it says, Tada rajastamo bhava kama lobhadayaschaye eta cheta ita anavidam sthitam sattve prasiddhati. It says, as you hear about Krishna, then the effect of hearing about Krishna is you rise above the mode of passion and ignorance. And once the passion and ignorance is removed from your mind or from your mentality, then the question of lust and greed has to go. They also go together. And then once the heart is clear, then a devotee makes a clear-cut progress towards Krishna. Now the question of desire and other things, there's no question as such as far as Krishna consciousness is being practiced. Krishna consciousness is so powerful that the desire, ichcha, and lust is called kama. They will dwindle and die, eradicated. And because of continuous engaging our senses and mind in the service of Krishna, then all these dirty things will go away from the mind. So Srila Prabhupada says, there is nothing perfect like Krishna consciousness, bhakti. Now here when we talk of bhakti, we have to consider not just normal bhakti, we have to come to pure bhakti, Shuddha bhakti or Ananya bhakti. Now, all of you heard the story of Ajaman. Now if you hear the story of Ajaman, Sukadeva Goswami, we all know the story of Ajaman. Before the story starts, there's a question raised by Maharaj Parikshit. Because at the end of the 5th canto, when Sukadeva Goswami said that people commit so many sinful activities and a lot of sinful reactions are already in their mind and in their intelligence, so they must go for atonement. And he says for atonement you should do this, like yoga, dana, tapa, going to place of pilgrimage, feeding the poor, and so many other things. But Parikshit Maharaj says, I have seen people doing that. But I have seen that when they return from places of pilgrimage or stop their sinful activities, then why do they return to the sinful activities again? And Maharaj Sukadeva Goswami was very pleased with the statement of Maharaj Parikshit. He says, you are right. They're doing this karma kand. Karma kand has ways of clearing your, it's called prashchit, repentance. But that can do some temporary thing. It gives you example of bamboo forest or forest. When there's forest fire, then all the trees get burnt. If you go and visit a forest burnt fire, all you'll find is black soot. But when it rains, again the trees grow. Why? Well, the roots were still inside. The roots were protected. So even when we give up sinful activities, as far as the roots are still there, you are going to sin again and again and again. I can give you my own example. Many, many years when I was not a devotee, I had a very bad habit of smoking cigarettes. At that time, I think I was 18 years, 19 years old. And somehow or other, I forced myself to stop it. And I stopped it. I used to smoke 9 cigarettes a day. Then after 9 months or 10 months, the habit started again. And this time it was not 9 cigarettes a day, it was 60 cigarettes a day. Shocking. So, and then to give it up was indeed impossible. I tried medicine, I tried to help things like they sell in the chemist that before you put your cigarette, there is a pipe they give you with some chemical inside, you insert your cigarette and you smoke. Nothing helped me. But one day, when I heard Bhagavad Gita, 6th chapter, 6th verse, that the mind is a friend of a conditioned soul and an enemy as well. When I heard this, or not actually heard, I was reading Bhagavad Gita. This verse struck my mind. And I said, if that is so, and I was very young and I had I was a very determined person. I said, from today onwards, either my mind wins or the cigarette wins. And 3 days it was a struggle because I used to get severe headache. 3 days. I could hardly walk. I could hardly think properly. But at that time I was a working person. So slowly the effect weared off on the 4th day and I quit smoking from that day. Now it is more than 45 years I have never touched the cigarettes. So I'm giving you my personal example that to give up one sinful activity, it is not easy. So even if you go to place of pilgrimage, you may give it up. But the moment you come back, if someone is smoking very close to you, you feel like, oh, let me taste it. And again, you catch up the habit. So in similar way, you can have many, many bad habits. We all know bad habits like going to a prostitute, gambling, taking some intoxication, and so on. Many, many sinful. There is numberless sinful activities. But the power of Krishna consciousness is so strong, bhakti, especially hearing, that by hearing about Krishna daily, regularly, you can purify your senses. This is the purifying effect of hearing about Krishna or practicing Krishna consciousness. Just for your information, many people do not know in today's generations why to marry. Many people don't know. They say, oh, marrying is a waste of time, a lot of burden. Then who's going to take care of children? Recently, we had one lady. Imagine she's an initiated lady. I was shocked to hear from her. I says, it's okay, I got married, but I don't want any children. I don't want any burden. Then what is the use of getting married? If you marry, it is meant to bring forth a good generation of God-loving people. So, the meaning of marriage means, Srila Prabhupada explains in a lecture, if you've already been exposed to the opposite sex and the lust has already arisen, then get married. Because marriage means you cure your lust. If you follow the scriptural injunction, and you'll be completely clear in the matter, it takes years. And then you'll engage again in devotional service. So marriage is not that it's a necessity. For ladies, it's a necessity, but for men, it's not a necessity. Prabhupada says all women should get married. Men may not marry if they remain brahmachari, but you hardly find men remain brahmachari. It's better they get married. So in today's generation, better you marry and live accordingly. Now, if you go to scriptures, it says marriage has a purifying effect. The marriage, especially the jagya, and the pandit or the performer of the sacrifice, is able to teach you why you perform a marriage, so that your senses become purified of the lust which is arising in you. And as you marry and go further, then what happens? You become purified day by day. And four things Prabhupada says you do daily, even in marriage. Once you get married, that means the business is not finished. The life ahead is longer, and the responsibilities increase day by day. So if you don't have three things in your mind, tolerance, respect for each other, and ready to sacrifice for each other, then better don't marry. These three things are must. And if you follow it, then four things will help you. What are the four things? Worship Krishna in your house, number one. Second, chant Hare Krishna. Third, discuss Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And number four, engage in offering Krishna Prasad. Offer your deities Krishna Prasad and only Krishna Prasad, and engage in Sankirtan Jagya. So four things will keep your marriage very, very happy. So marriage is so purifying. So devotional service also is similar. You're actually getting married to Krishna. And once you get married to Krishna, then your married life has to be changed. In the similar way, your devotional service has to be changed. Just means focused in one point. And that's why Krishna says in the 14th chapter, 26th verse, there's no light, so I'll just speak it myself. Otherwise, I would have told someone to read it. The verse is Mamcho Vyabhicharini Bhakti Yogena Srivate Saguna Samayitan Brahma Bhuyaya Kartate. That by engaging devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, one can overcome the three modes of nature and come to the level of Brahma or absolute platform. This is the power if you engage in devotional service. Artificially, it is not possible. You may think recently one lady at the wanted to book a house program, and maybe she was advised by somebody to do something. So she called me, oh, today please don't come. So I said, why? She says, I have been told by some pandit to observe Mauna Vrat. You know Mauna Vrat? Not to speak anything. And while she was speaking, her daughter was talking to me, and I could hear her mother saying, ooh, 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 ooh. Maybe she had written the message on a paper, speak like this. Then, after a few days when I called her, I asked her, do you know what is Mauna Vrat? He says, yes, not to speak anything for 3 days. I said, real Mauna Vrat means not to speak anything, but to only chant Hare Krishna. This is the real definition of Mauna Vrat. So anyway, it may be useful for some people. Or some people, they try to do a lot of what he calls tapa. For example, Chaturmarch. Many devotees here have taken vow, which is good enough. Some people say, I eat once in a day. Some people say, I eat only once a day, but I only eat for this item, and so on. Not bad. But what is behind Chaturmarch is, have you increased the remembrance of Krishna? Are you chanting more names of Krishna? Are you hearing Bhagavatam? Are you reading Bhagavad Gita? If not, then all these things may have an effect, but a few percent. Without knowing what is behind what we are doing, doesn't make any sense. In the second chapter, I think verse number 46, it says, all the purpose all the purpose of different wells can be done by, if there is a reservoir of water. In villages in India, in the olden times, Even almost 50 years ago, people used to drink or get water from the well. And they had to walk distance to get the water. And then different wells were done. From wells, some wells would be for animals, some for human beings, some for washing clothes, and so on. But if there's a lake of pure water, then you do not need to go to well. You just go to the reservoir. In the same way, the whole Vedas, who is behind the Vedas, is Krishna. Vedis is sarvam ahameva Vedi. So if one takes up devotional service, then atonement is naturally done. You do not need to do separately. That is why the story of Ajamila was given, spoken to Sukadeva Goswami. And the verse I am quoting, I am reading that verse is, which speaks about only worshipping Krishna. So let me read that verse to you. It's in the 6th canto, chapter 1, verse number 15. Kechit kevalya bhaktya vasudeve parayana agham dhunvanti kashnaya na niharam eva bhashkara. Only a rare person who has adopted complete, unalloyed devotional service to Krishna can uproot the weeds of sinful actions with no possibility that they will revive. He can do this simply by discharging devotional service, just as the sun can immediately dissipate fog by its rays. So this is the power of devotional service. And that is why the whole story of Ajamila was given. And this is one of the most powerful verses in the Bhagavatam. That simply by engaging in unalloyed devotional service to Krishna, you can uproot all the weeds of your sinful reaction. There's no other way. So that is what Narmul is telling Vyasdev. Now Sri Prabhupada is giving 2 examples. One is Vishwamitra. Most of you know who is Vishwamitra. Anybody from you knows who is Vishwamitra? Vishwamitra was originally a king, and later on he wanted to become a Brahmin because he saw that Brahmins are very powerful and very opulent. So what did they do? He was told to perform yoga. Now imagine yoga he underwent was very, very difficult. Ashtanga yoga. And he did it for 50,000 years. Imagine in those days, Satyuga, man could live 100,000 years. So 50,000 years he did simply by meditating on Brahma. Brahma means impersonal feature of the Lord. And one day Menaka came. Menaka is an angel, celestial lady from heavens, who is a servitor of Indra. Indra sent her to allure him. And everybody knows that he was allured. And what happened? His yoga broke. And then all those 50,000 years yoga all went, it all stopped. And he realizes a mistake. Of course, nothing goes in vain, but he had to rectify that mistake. On the other hand, on contrary, Haridas Thakur was visited in 2 different instances, one by a prostitute, one by a Maya. Maya Devi herself, which is Durga, very, very powerful. He was chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare in his cave. And it was almost midnight, almost after 10 at night. And he noticed outside the cave, the scenery became very beautiful. It's like moon. You find that on the waxing moon, the moon looks very beautiful. We call it Purnima. Everything looks white. And moon looks so beautiful. So he's wondering, it's not Purnima, and how come it looks so beautiful outside? His eyes looked outside. And he saw a very beautiful lady walking inside. So beautiful that it can allure anyone. But he was so much immersed in chanting that he went on chanting, and Maya Devi was actually captured by Haridas. And she also started chanting. And she said, later on she revealed herself. She said, actually, I had come to test you. And you passed the test. I have allured many, many people. I could not allude you. So please teach me or give me the taste how to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is the comparison Prabhupada is given about Haridas Thakur and Vishwamitra. So with Krishna consciousness, yoga and jnana, in front of Krishna consciousness, yoga and jnana are not effective. The way Krishna consciousness is effective. Sometimes people say by yoga. I have a friend of mine who is no more now, he passed away. And this is almost about now 20 years ago. I remember the incident. He started doing yoga. This yoga, who is this famous person? Ramdev, something like that, yeah? So he was taking lessons from Ramdev. And I noticed that he became very thin. He was a very huge fellow. And day by day, he became thin. And one day when I visited him, he taught me, he said, you should also do yoga. You see the way I become slim, I become healthy. I didn't say anything because he was not the person who would start chanting Hare Krishna. So I didn't advise him more. I just came home and in a matter of months, he passed away. So the question came to me, if he was healthy, why did he pass away? He had no diseases, but maybe he overdid something. Or maybe he did it in a fanatic way that he passed away. And this is true. And now his family whole was in that. His son is still living. Now his son got initiated just last week. Now his son also told me to do the same thing. I said, I'll do what Prabhupada says. I'm not going to do what you tell me. He says, no, breathing is good for you. Sitting is good for you. He also taught me putting your hand here, releasing air. And I said, okay, that clears my lungs. Sitting position, which would maybe make me slim. But I said, there's nothing powerful like chanting Hare Krishna. And he agreed. That to an extent that he started chanting Hare Krishna 16 rounds a day. And just last week, he got initiated in America, though he had to go from here to America because Maharaj is in America, and he's very happy. So you can compare that even that yoga which he was learning, he now knew that actually chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Be happy means does not mean don't spoiling your senses. Happy actually means still controlling your senses by engaging in Krishna consciousness. We have discussed this verses many, many times of Amrish Maharaj. How Amrish Maharaj used to use all his senses in the service of Krishna. Savai Mana Krishna Padaravindayo Vacham Sivaikute Gunana Varnanam. These are the verses that Savai Mana, he always used to think of Krishna. He used to use his eyes to see the deity of Krishna. He's used to hear, his ears to hear the glories of Krishna like Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. The tongue was used to taste prasadam. Then mouth for glorifying Krishna. Hands for cleaning the temple. Legs for going to the places where Krishna is worshipped. Body for serving the Vaishnavas or the devotees. And desires to please the desires of Krishna. That makes Amrish Maharaj Matpara a perfect devotee, a great devotee. So this is a simple example. I mean, the best example one can have. Those who have Bhagavad Gita, you can read these verses. I think one is in the chapter 2, verse number 61. And again, the same verses are quoted in the 6th chapter. And it starts with, there are 3 to 4 verses in a line. Savai Mana Krishna Padaravindayo Vacham Sivaikute Gunana Vandanam. If you engage, if you take the example of Amrish Maharaj, imagine he's the emperor of the entire world, yet he could engage in devotional service. Yet we complain that we have very little time to engage in devotional service. No, time is always there, but we do not make the best use of time. The best use of time is to engage in Krishna consciousness. Now, Srila Prabhupada says, Krishna consciousness is pure, transcendental, from the very beginning. It's not that you are going to get purity, I mean transcendence later on. Bhakti itself is transcendental from the very day one. For example, the first time you start chanting Hare Krishna, the purification has already started. First day you come to take darshan, the purification started. First day you heard Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam. First day you take prasad. Many examples. The purification has already started. You may not be knowing. You may not feel the purification, but purification has already started. And it becomes pure and it will purify you. Now let's take an opposite thing. If you sin, then the seed is already planted. It's not the results will come out. It's called kutam. And the seed planting is called bicha. Then aprabdha means that the sin, the plant of the sin is already growing. And one day the fruit comes, it's called prabdha. You suffer for that sin. So the way the sinful activity goes in a progress, the devotional service also goes in a progress. In the beginning of devotional service, you'll enjoy the service itself. I can ask many of you that, do you enjoy serving at the temple? You'll find yes. I like to do this service. I like to make galas. I like to help cooking. I like to go and distribute books. I like Harinam. I like to do seva. Even liking to wipe the temple. I'm not flattering myself, but this is the first service I was given in our Nairobi temple. Wipe the temple. And I used to wipe the temple daily for months and months. And later on I was told to cheat and started advised to start chanting Hare Krishna. So I used to relish the service so much that I look, what time am I supposed to go to temple? Early in the morning. Time I was given was 6 o'clock in the morning. I would run. Just to stay close to the temple. I'll rush to the temple. The bucket of warm water will be there with soap inside and a big towel. I'll wipe the entire temple. So I cannot forget this service. That was the beginning of my devotional service. So anyway, any service you do, you'll enjoy. I know because I practically go to house programs at least 3 times in a week. Even yesterday I had program. Saturday I had. Sunday I had. Even Friday I had last week. So when we went for a program on Friday, he said, you come again tomorrow. I said, tomorrow I can't come. I'm already booked. He said, then come next week. So I had to go yesterday for the program. So they liked it so much. He said, we have never heard that Krishna consciousness of bhakti is so nice. So people appreciate, provided the heart is clear and they don't have any misgivings, especially to our ISKCON, then no problem. If they're innocent, they'll accept it. So this is the beauty of Krishna consciousness, that in the beginning you'll enjoy the seva. And as Prabhupada says in the purport in Bhagavad Gita, I think almost in the 18th chapter, in the beginning, as it goes further, it's like a ladder. As you go up and up and up, you'll enjoy the love of Krishna, in which you are also doing service, and you actually feel the presence of love of Krishna. Krishna will love you so much, sitting from your heart, even from externally, that you actually relish the love of you. That just you want to speak his name over and over again and again. Rukma Goswami explains in the Nectar of Devotion, Kala avartakam. Kala means time. Avartakam, no time should be wasted, but each minute should be used to serve Krishna, either by chanting, by hearing, by reading, by glorifying, that is called preaching, by eating prasad. All these activities, 24, even going to sleep. Don't go to sleep if you're not chanted Hare Krishna. And you don't come out of your bed if you're not spoken Mahamantra at least once on your tongue. Then you leave your bed. This is called the lifestyle of a devotee. You can see this lifestyle of any senior devotee. They're not interested in anything else. They are so much engrossed in Krishna consciousness that simply by even seeing them or sitting there with them only for a few minutes, you can feel that current. Prabhupada gives the example of a magnet. If a magnet is brought closer to the small flints of powder of iron, they become attracted. In a similar way, when you hear about Krishna, even you will be attracted. No doubt about it. Even a sinful man who does it will be clear of all these sins. So here we find that the bhakti which we are doing, now this is like a ladder, which is explained between the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita and the 6th chapter. It's called Yoga Ladder. The Yoga Ladder, if you go to the bottom, before you started bhakti, it is called Karma Kanda. The Karma Kanda is not in bhakti. Karma Kanda is better than animal life. Doing some Karma Kanda ritually says is much better than just doing eating, sleeping, mating, defending. If you go higher, and if you do all the services only for Krishna, then it's called Karma Yoga. For those who can answer the question, which verse teaches you practically how to do Karma Yoga? Anybody likes to answer that question? Anybody? Yes, Panchali Mataji.
Sir Prabhuji, I probably didn't get the question right. Are you saying which is the best karma to do?
No, that's not the question. The question is which verse in Bhagavad Gita speaks practical Karma Yoga?
Oh, no, Prabhuji, sorry.
Hare Krishna,
Anybody likes
Prabhu.
to start?
I'm just
Hare Krishna.
trying out. I'm not sure. Is it the Bhagavad Gita 9.27? Yat karoshi, yat ashnashi.
Yes, you got it. 9:27. Yat karoshi, yat ashnashi, yat juhoshi, dadasi yat. Yat tabashashi kante, yat tat kurusha, mat arpanam. Then whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you give away, anything you do it as an offering to me. And the next verse after that, if you do this, then you live with me. So we all start with Karma Yoga. It's not that we are pure devotees. Karma Yoga is the first one. As you go up a little, then there is bhakti, not pure. That's why it's called Karma Mishra Bhakti. Then maybe speculation will come in about the supremacy of Krishna. You may be fully surrendered to Krishna, but there's still some doubts. That's called Jnana Mishra Bhakti. And then when you go still further, that's called Nishkama Bhakti. Nishkama means only to please Krishna. And when you start Nishkama Bhakti, it will lead you to pure devotion, Shuddha Bhakti. So Bhakti becomes purified step by step by step. So when you reach the Nishkama Bhakti, Krishna will actually love you and you will love Krishna because you cannot live without Krishna. Like a fish cannot live without water, you cannot live without Krishna. So these are the steps one will actually experience if you are someone who is a practicing devotee for many, many years. I can assure you, you're going through all this before you come to pure devotion. That is what Narad is saying, that there can be Karma Mishra Bhakti, Jnana Mishra Bhakti, but when you engage in Krishna consciousness, then a partner with you always is this scripture known as Srimad Bhagavatam. Read regularly, daily. This is your best partner. Of course, to read Bhagavatam, to understand Bhagavatam, you read devotee association. So that is the meaning. Srila Vyasdeva also, in the last line of this purport, the Prabhupada said, the other Srimad Bhagavatam will gradually develop all these differences of transcendental realization in the text. So throughout Bhagavatam, all this has been explained, that yoga, karma, jnana, ashtanga yoga, but there is nothing superior like Krishna Bhakti. But to clear all that, Vyasdeva to speak the entire Bhagavatam by giving all the pastimes, all the incarnations of Krishna. And even if you know Bhagavad Gita, you'll find that Krishna gives the strength of bhakti throughout what do you call it? Bhagavad Gita. But he gives the maximum strength in the 18th chapter. Anybody knows the verse? When Krishna says, only by doing bhakti you can know me. Anybody likes to try this verse? Which verse is that? Lakshmi Mataji, what is the name? Lakshmi Pashupati. You know the verse? Very famous verse.
Bhaktiyanam abhijanati.
Yes. Bhaktyamam abhijanati. Bhaktyamam abhijanati. Yavanyash chashmita tuta. Tatomam tattvatam gnatva vishade tadanantara. It's only by devotional service you can know me as I am. And also 1155, you can when you open your Bhagavad Gita, it also tells you the same thing. So the supremacy of Bhagavad Gita is given in the 18th chapter. In one verse makes it very clear. Though bhakti has been given throughout Bhagavad Gita, but Krishna says, nothing can reveal who I am to you other than bhakti. So this is the glory of bhakti, which Narad Muni explains to Vyasdev. Hare Krishna. Any questions on this verse, on this text? Anybody likes to ask any questions? No questions today?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji
Yes, Madhur Madhur.
and with Pranam. So, how do we understand at what level we are in our devotional service?
Very nice question. Okay, now to answer that question, I'll ask you a question. When you start eating, when do you feel that now I have eaten enough? Who will answer that? Will you answer that or someone will answer that?
Myself.
Yeah, in
I
a
will
similar
answer.
way. As you progress in
Yeah.
devotional service, you yourself will enjoy the happiness of devotional service. Bhakti Viraktir, that is the verse explained in the 10th chapter. 10th canto. That when you engage in devotional service, then you'll feel three things. The compassion is given to a hungry man. When a man is very hungry, you give him food. Each morsel which enters his mouth, he enjoys the food, the taste. He relishes the taste of food. The second effect is his hunger dies. And the third effect is he becomes satisfied. This is the same three effects are when you engage in devotional service. Yourself, your own mind, your intelligence, your very Atma will say, this is good. Does that answer your question, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
I can give you the verse number if you want.
Oh, yeah.
Give me a minute. Give me a minute. It starts with, it's Bhakti Parishanavo Virakti. 266, Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto. Sorry, not 10th canto, 11th canto, chapter 2, verse number 42. 11, 2, 42. Translation is devotion, direct experience of the Supreme Lord, and detachment from other things. These three occur simultaneously from one who has taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the same way as pleasure, nourishment, and relief from hunger come simultaneously and increasingly with each bite for a person engaged in eating. So this is the verse you should read. Okay, anybody has any other questions?
Prabhuji, on the same, Prabhuji, can you hear me?
Yes.
Prabhuji, on the same, so after eating, we feel satisfied. So, and then you don't want to eat anymore. So I hope it is not the same for bhakti, that once you reach at a level, obviously we are not. So that's why we keep on trying. So we should not get satisfied.
No, when you're eaten properly, that means the satisfaction has come. So once you know the value of bhakti, you become so satisfied that you want to go more deeper inside. And the Bhagavatam says, Anandam Buddhivadam, even our Shikshastakam, the first verse it says, Anandam Buddhi Cheto Darpan Marjanam Bhava Mahadvagani Nirvapanam Shreya Kairva Chandrika Vitaram Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam. For example, chanting. As your bhakti increases, though you are satisfied that I have taken this process, that is called satisfaction. But the ocean is still in front of you, that you go deeper and deeper and deeper, and you'll never regret. So much happiness will increase. As you go deeper, the happiness goes up. You'll enjoy your chanting more and more and more. In the beginning, we do it out of duty, out of fear. When you take initiation, generally it's due to fear that now I am initiated. I must do my rounds because I give a promise to my Guru Maharaj and the fire and the fellow Vaishnavas. But if you keep up the habit, then the habit will increase and increase. So much pleasure in you that you'll feel like chanting the entire day. Hare Krishna. Does it answer your question, Mother?
Yes, Prabhuji. And Prabhuji, because of internet disruptions, I didn't get this. So when you get married, you should have tolerance, respect, and what is the third thing?
Sacrifice. You should be ready to sacrifice for each other. And the same three are applicable when you engage in devotional service. You'll find if the couple doesn't have these three things, the marriage doesn't last. And they'll be quarreling all the time. They'll never be happy. And four things you should not forget. Chanting Hare Krishna, discussing Bhagavatam, worshipping Krishna at your house, and inviting sadhus at your house by engaging in Nam Sankirtan. Okay? Anybody else likes to ask any question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. Prabhuji, can you please describe in a simple way what is the devotional service?
What is devotional service?
Yes,
Devotional
Prabhuji.
service is Bhakti Yoga. Prabhupada translate for the English speaking as a devotional service. And devotional service means any service with love for Krishna is called devotional service. And if you want to know the dhatu or the substance, go to the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, verse number 47, last verse, where Prabhupada says, explains the word bhajate. Because bhakti means bhajate. You do engage, you have to serve Krishna by doing some service. Not just by thinking that I am serving Krishna. Also that is allowed, provided your thinking is good. But you have to serve Krishna in different ways. Hearing, chanting, remembering, and so on. I gave you the Navda Bhakti. All these 9 are called devotional service in one word. I mean in 2 words. So. Is it okay?
Yes, Prabhu. It means this Navada Bhakti is the devotional service.
Yes.
But the thing is that, for example, I am supposed to chanting. I am not this elevated level. I am chanting whole day or 3 hours, 5 hours. I want to do some service. It means physical labor or physical seva. So is that considered the devotional service or what is this?
It is still called devotional service. Though chanting itself is devotional service. Then service is dasya. See, first is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, then Archanam, then comes Dashyam. When you do service for Krishna, that is also Anga or the limb of devotional service. Is it okay? It is still purifying.
Yes, yes.
For example, you tell someone, okay, today is Sunday feast, come and help in cutting vegetables. That is devotional service. You can tell someone, okay, come and clean the pots. It is devotional service. I remember in Arabic temple, now we have a big temple. Formerly it was a very small temple. We had to go and buy vegetables, we had to cook, we had to serve. After that, we ourselves had to wash all the utensils. Arabic temple didn't have any money, nor did it have any servants in those days. We were going through all that. And we used to love doing those services. Because we used to be like a team, about 5 to 6 devotees. After everyone is gone, everyone is eaten. After that, we will sit in a round circle. We'll enjoy the prasad so nicely that we have done this. Even cooking was done by ourselves. In the end, we enjoy. So don't say that that is not devotional. That is also devotional service. Hearing is devotion service. For example, all those who are hearing and I am speaking, it's called kirtan. And you are hearing, that is called shravanam. These are the two most powerful tools. And the effect of this is chanting. You'll be able to chant nicely. So the more you hear Bhagavatam, more you hear Bhagavad Gita, your chanting goes up. It's a supplement.
Yes.
Is it okay, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Are there any other questions or comments? If there are no more questions or comments, Prabhuji, Prabhuji, I'll hand over to you, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. It's a very nice class and very simple. You describe all the about the pastimes of Narada Muni, how he releasing the Krishna Prem. Prabhu, Narada is meditating Krishna or Vishnu? Because he is chanting Narayan, Narayan.
He's meditating on Krishna. You know, the verse itself says Krishna.
Okay. But why he is chanting Narayan, Narayan all the time?
Because Narada Muni appeared in the Satya Yuga. So he's always chanting Narayan, Narayan, because Krishna is the original Narayan. Even if you meet him now, he's still chanting Narayan, but he's focused on Krishna.
Okay. Nice. Thank you, Prabhuji. I request all the devotees, please unmute yourself and chant Hare Krishna mantra for glorification of His grace, Rukma Prabhuji. Please join. Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Hare,
Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare. Vancha
Hare Krishna.
Prabhupada ki
Jai.
jai. Prabhu ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Which verse did Prabhuji mention?